During a corporate retreat, my brother rolled his eyes and said, "She's got a lot of spirit, shame it's wasted." I said nothing, slowly rose through the industry, and when his firm came up for acquisition, I made sure every clause excluded him. He lost his partnership, his home was foreclosed, and his name was used as a cautionary tale in internal corporate training slides for years afterward. "She's got a lot of spirit, shame it's wasted." It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Offhand, dismissive, like I wasn't even in the room. Like my work, my ambition, my effort, all of it was a joke to him. The worst part? He was my older brother. This happened in 2011. Up in the Catskills. My firm had rented out a resort for a leadership retreat, one of those 3-day things where they try to teach you about vision and team cohesion, using ropes courses and seminars run by guys who call themselves thought architects. I was working at Allensworth and Reed back then. I was 29, in a mid-level role in operations. My title sounded important, but I had zero pull. I was just trying to survive in an industry where backstabbing wasn't just common, it was how promotions happened. Matt, my brother, had been invited to the retreat as a guest speaker. He was already a big name at Holden & Keene, a private equity firm known for aggressive deals and fat bonuses. He was 37 at the time, full partner, well-dressed, cocky as hell. He wasn't supposed to be on the panel I was speaking on, but he wandered into the room with a drink in hand, probably looking to show off in front of people who still thought he walked on water. I had worked hard on my part. It was a 10-minute presentation about a new workflow model. I was proposing something that would cut down redundancy and give more autonomy to department leads. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was solid. I got through it. A few polite claps. Then came Matt. He didn't ask a question. He just laughed, loud enough to cut through the room. "She's got a lot of spirit, shame it's wasted," he said, turning to the guy next to him, not even looking at me. The room laughed with him. Not loud, but enough. I stood there staring at him. My own brother. And he didn't flinch. Didn't even register that he'd said something cruel. That's who Matt was. He said whatever the hell he wanted and moved on. I didn't respond. I didn't confront him. I sat back down, smiled like it didn't matter. But that moment, that sentence was the last time I let myself be small. He'd said it like I didn't matter. So I made it my mission to matter more than he ever would. I left Allensworth within the year. Took a job at a mid-sized logistics firm in Cleveland. I didn't tell anyone from the retreat, including Matt. I just vanished from their orbit. Started building in silence. I stopped trying to impress people in the room and started focusing on becoming the person who built the room. The next 8 years were hell and gold. I worked late. Said yes to every tough project. Swallowed my pride. Learned how the money really moved behind corporate curtains. When I finally joined Garraway Holdings in 2017, I wasn't a manager anymore. I was a strategist. The kind they didn't list on the website, the kind who sat in back rooms and mapped out the future of companies that didn't even know we had our eye on them yet. I didn't forget Matt. I never forgot that line. But I didn't dwell on it either. Revenge only works if it's slow. Long hidden beneath purpose. And then, in late 2021, it happened. My analyst handed me a file. Internal code. HKGray. I opened it. Holden & Keene. They were looking for strategic options code for. "We're running out of time and we need help fast." I read through their financials. Ugly. Over-leveraged. 3 funds underperforming. 2 senior partners already quietly leaving. They needed a buyer, but they needed one discreetly, or they risked a mass client exodus. The thing is, I could have passed on the file. But I didn't. I had my team set up a silent shell firm. Not hard when you know the right lawyers. Through that shell, we started poaching Holden's biggest accounts. One by one. We offered slightly better margins, better terms, a whisper of exclusivity. Clients moved. Quietly. No big flags. In 3 months, Holden had lost 40% of their active income without even realizing who was taking it. Then we made our move. Garraway approached them not as a savior, but as a mirror. We let them see just enough of our strength to believe we were their best chance at survival. The negotiations took weeks. During that time, I sat through calls where Matt's name came up over and over. I didn't speak. I didn't raise my voice. I just inserted one critical clause into the final deal. Clause 42C. It stated that only partners who had their contracts renegotiated through direct engagement with Garraway within a 30-day window prior to acquisition would be offered transitional equity or positions within the new structure. Matt didn't renegotiate. He assumed like always that his title would carry him through. He never read the full contract, and no one warned him. I made sure of that. The acquisition closed. Garraway took full control of Holden. On the first Monday under new ownership, I walked into the Holden office. I wore the same black blazer I'd worn at that retreat 10 years ago. Same watch. Just older now. Sharper. Matt was at his desk. He looked up confused. Wait, what? Hi, Matt, I said. Long time. We brought the execs into the boardroom. I explained the transition structure. I handed out packets all with new offers inside. Everyone except Matt. He flipped through his folder, face tightening. There's nothing in here for me, he said, looking up. I kept my voice even. You didn't renegotiate. The clause was clear. You can't be serious, he said, voice rising. I've been a partner for 15 years. I nodded. And now you're not. There was silence. Thick. He looked around, waiting for someone to back him up. No one did. He stood up, then sat back down. Defeated. He left the building that day without saying another word to me. The next few months I heard whispers. Matt tried starting a firm. It flopped. His network had dried up. His name was no longer Wade, it was Warning. His house in White Plains was foreclosed 6 months later. Vermont went not long after. Someone told me he took a job consulting for a mid-tier real estate firm under a pseudonym. I didn't care enough to check. But I'll tell you what I did do. I had our internal training team create a case study. It was called The Partner Who Didn't Read the Fine Print. A Study in Complacency. Slide 3. A picture of Matt. Name and title. No context. Every new hire in Garraway sees it. And if they ever ask who he was, I just smile and say, he's the reason I started paying attention. It should have ended there. But life has a way of digging up the bones you think you've buried. A year after the acquisition, I got a call from HR. They said there was a problem with a new hire, a compliance analyst. Smart, quiet guy. Nothing stood out on paper. But one of our directors flagged his name. Daniel Carlin. Matt's son. I hadn't seen Daniel since he was in high school. Last I heard he'd gone to Cornell, then spent a year at Deloitte before bouncing around startups. Now he was walking through the doors of the company that dismantled his father's career. I stared at the name on the report for a long time. I knew I could block the hire. Quietly. No one would even know. But I didn't. I approved it. Some part of me, maybe out of pride, maybe spite, wanted him to see where the real power lived now. For the first few months, he didn't even notice me. I stayed out of his department. But eventually, our paths crossed at a strategy session. He introduced himself, shook my hand like I was a stranger. And I realized, Matt never told him. Not the full story anyway. He didn't know who I was in all this. Everything might have stayed quiet if not for the slide. The training deck. The one with Matt's name and photo. Daniel was in a new hire onboarding when it came up. HR told me what happened, and he went pale. Didn't say a word. Just closed his laptop and walked out. The next day he filed a complaint. Accused the company of defamation and hostile work environment. Said someone was targeting his family. That's when the CEO got involved. And that's when I had to come clean to him, to legal, to the board. I laid it out. The old retreat, the clause, the acquisition. I didn't lie. I didn't spin it. I had a personal reason to ensure we ran that deal clean, I said. But everything was above board. They believed me. Mostly because they had to. I'd made the firm more money in 3 years than any other strategist before me. Daniel didn't get fired. But he was moved. Quietly. Off any project that had even a shadow of my involvement. 2 weeks later, I found a manila envelope on my desk. No return address. Inside, a single page. A printout of an email I'd sent years ago, a sloppy one. Sent from a personal account. Venting to a friend about how satisfying it was to watch my brother lose everything. There was a sticky note on it. In Daniel's handwriting. Don't worry. I've got spirit too. That note stayed on my desk for days. I didn't respond. I didn't go to HR. I didn't escalate it. Not because I was scared, but because I wasn't sure what he wanted. The email itself wasn't damning. It was petty emotional, but nothing illegal. Nothing they could really move on. Still, it showed me one thing. Daniel wasn't just some passive legacy kid writing a resume. He was watching me, waiting. A few months later, small things started happening. First, one of my junior analysts had her calendar scrambled, her meetings moved, deleted. She missed a critical client call and almost got written up. IT traced the access to a shared admin account, but never pinned down who triggered it. Then a draft report, I was building a presentation for a huge acquisition in Texas, was somehow leaked to the target company's board. We couldn't prove it, but someone inside Garraway tipped them off. We lost the deal. It cost us 7 figures. The CEO was pissed. I took the hit on paper, but I knew who was behind it. Daniel was still smiling at me in every meeting. Still quiet. Still working late. Still pretending he was just another analyst with something to prove. He had Matt's smirk, the exact same one I'd seen at that retreat all those years ago. Daniel didn't go after me directly. That would have been too obvious. Too fast. He was smarter than his father in that way. He played the long game. But what he didn't know was so did I. I started having coffee with people in his department. Casual chats. I built a web slowly around him. I found out what projects he was touching, who he was mentoring, who he was charming. And then I found her. Katie from Data Compliance. She was junior, fresh out of grad school, and completely enthralled by Daniel. He was guiding her through the ropes, talking to her late, helping with cross-department tasks. She thought it was mentorship. I knew better. So I invited her out to lunch. A real one, not the kind with HR tags or stiff collars. I asked her about her goals, her opinions, her instincts. Then I asked her one question. Do you know what happened to his father? She hesitated. Said, not really. Just that he left the firm years ago. Some kind of merger. I smiled. I didn't say more. I didn't have to. I let that silence do the work. 2 weeks later, Katie came to me. Quietly. She'd found something. A document that Daniel had pulled, one he had no clearance for. A pipeline report showing internal vulnerability assessments for our client network. If that had leaked, it would have been a security disaster. But it hadn't leaked. Yet. She found it in a shared drive where it shouldn't have been. Logged under Daniel's ID, but modified by someone else. He was setting her up. When I saw the file Katie brought me, my hands went cold. Daniel wasn't just poking at the edges. He was setting up a detonation. And he was going to use that girl, the one who trusted him, as the fall. She would have taken the hit. HR would have seen her ID tied to a copy of the file. She would have been blamed for accessing it. Fired at best. Blacklisted at worst. It was so clean I had to wonder how many times he'd done something like this before. I knew then. I had underestimated him. Matt had raised a sharper version of himself. This wasn't just about me or his father. Daniel was playing the long game the same way I had, only without rules. So I called in the last favor I had left at Garraway. Our internal risk team had a protocol called tracebait. It was rarely used, only for insider threats. It worked like this. We'd create a fake but highly tempting file. One that looked real, had metadata, names, numbers, but was pure fiction. We named it Client Risk Map _2025 preview. I planted it in a folder. Daniel had access to a folder he thought was hidden from my reach. And I waited. Took him 3 days. He copied it. Opened it twice. Tried to forward it to a dummy Gmail account. That was it. The system flagged it. We had his IP. His timestamp. The file path. Everything. I had our IT team print the logs and send them directly to the general counsel. Then I booked a boardroom and had Daniel paged. He walked in with that same calm smile. Arrogant. Cold. Like nothing could touch him. Have a seat, I said. He glanced around. What's this about? I slid the packet across the table. He flipped through the first page and I saw at the exact moment his confidence cracked. I raised a hand. Don't lie. You're smarter than your father, Daniel. That's the problem. You thought I wouldn't see it coming. He stared at me. You ruined him. I nodded. I did. And I did it the right way. Legal. Strategic. But you? You tried to bury a girl who trusted you. You crossed a line your father never dared to. His voice dropped. He cried the night you did it. You know that. I leaned forward. So did I said. Then I got back up. He stayed down. Daniel was fired that day. No warnings. No severance. But I didn't stop there. We sent the evidence to the other firms he'd applied to while at Garraway, including one that had offered him a conditional hire. They pulled their offer. Within a week his name was mud. Word got out. Not about the specifics, those stayed private, but enough to mark him. He'd broken trust. And in our world that's a death sentence. Katie was promoted 2 months later. I kept her on my team. She never spoke Daniel's name again. The next time I saw Matt was at our mother's funeral. He was thinner, older, tired. We didn't speak during the service. But afterward, as I was getting into my car, he approached. You got him too, huh? He said. I looked him in the eyes. He got himself, I said. I just gave him the rope. He nodded.
No anger.
Just acceptance. You win, he said. No, I said. I survived. That's different. He walked away. I haven't seen either of them since. But sometimes when I pass the old Holden building now fully under the Garraway name, I think back to that retreat. That one sentence. She's got a lot of spirit shame, it's wasted. No, it was never wasted. It was waiting. And when it hit, it burned everything that tried to bury it.